goodness. It's a simple way of putting it. As you can see in the Buddhist teachings, time and time and time again, you're going to see a term to learn to know what to eliminate and what to practice. This is the job of being a Buddhist. This is the job. Not watching your breath, not being mindful, not doing prostrations, not having a bald head, not wearing 14th century robes, not taking vows. They're all the supporting actions you do to do this job. This is crucial to understand. As Rama Yeshe puts it, when we start to become our own therapist doing this work, that's when we become a Buddhist. It's a really important point, because it's all about the mind and Buddha's view of what our potential is. So if it's possible to get happy and stop suffering, and the method is to get rid of the rubbish, because that's the cause of suffering, and to develop the goodness, which is the cause of happiness, then you better learn to distinguish between them. This is the key thing. It's so obvious. If you just don't know anything about botany, you see this big mass of overgrown stuff, all growing together, mixed up. You have no idea what's a herb, what's a weed, what's a flower, what's a vegetable. You have no concept, no idea. You just see a bunch of growing stuff. Then you learn botany. And you start to learn that there's some stuff in there that you can pull out, that you need to pull out because it's rubbish, and stuff you can grow, that you can eat and be lovely. You'd better learn botany. Well, here we're learning Buddha's botany, you know, how to see the qualities in the mind. So, among all these neurotic states of mind, many, 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 he says, you can get them all, boil them down to three poisons. If you've seen any Buddhist teachings, you're going to hear about the three poisons, you know. Ignorance, attachment, aversion. Seems like three separate kind of interesting states of mind, but there's a intimate and a hierarchical relationship between them. So the root of them, the root misconception, the root delusion, the root neurosis, the root affliction, whatever word you want, the root mental illness, affliction. Remember, a type of affliction. Affliction is illness. What kind? Mental. Buddha's not discussing physical, he's discussing mental. So a mental illness. I think he would have found that word perfect. The term they use is mental affliction. Well, mental illness is more direct, in my opinion. It's shocking in our culture, because we think people way down the other end over there are mentally ill and I'm normal. No, 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 he says. The extent to which we have any attachment, any aversion, any ignorance, any anger, any low self-esteem, all of these is the extent to which we're mentally ill. It's a really good way of putting it. Shocking in our culture, but it's exactly correct for the Buddha. So the root affliction, the root mental illness, the most subtle, the one that drives the other two in this little group of three, is called simply ignorance. It's got various functions, but the root ignorance, and it sounds very abstract to us, this is primordial, deeply instinctive, deeply ingrained, hard to identify, neurotic state of mind. That's clinging, grasping, desperately, frantically all the time at a wrong sense of I. Put it simply, you know, in colloquially we can call it ego grasping. And the consequences of that are fear, neurosis, a sense of separateness, bereft, separate, the world all out there. And then the main voice of that ego grasping is this next one, attachment. Attachment. And the third one, which is when attachment doesn't get what it wants, aversion. So this is the relationship between the three. So attachment and aversion, forget the root one. If we look at attachment and then aversion, which is the response when attachment is thwarted, these are the two we run between. And all the others we can, you know, they all come down to these three. So better distinguish attachment, better identify attachment. So I think that's always helpful to, I mention this all the time, and it's good to remember it, is we've got two ways that our mind functions, and they're utterly, completely distinct and separate, but we don't think like this, you know. What sensory consciousness, sensory, the part of our mind, which is not physical for the Buddha, that functions through the medium of the body, the eyes, ears, the nose, all these bits and pieces, you know, the physical. And then we have the mental consciousness. Consciousness, mind, synonymous, mental consciousness. As Lama Zopa says, that's where the workshop is. That's what we're talking here. That's what we have to learn to understand. Go deep into, dig into, unpack, unravel, identify, distinguish. This is the job, the mental consciousness. But it's a revelation when we can begin even intellectually to distinguish between the sensory and the mental. It gives us a great kind of doorway into seeing how our mind works. So the trouble is with our sensory consciousness, which is that function of our body relating to that part of our mind, it dominates our lives. As Lama Yeshe says, we make the body the boss, Our physical experiences dominate our lives. We know that. And then when we have very strong emotions, which are themselves mental consciousness, we even say we feel them in our body. We even think of them as bodily. But they're not. They're not physical, not possible. But because the body and the mind are intimately connected, we experience them even physically. We know that. I mean, the pain when you're angry, the physical pain is unbearable, isn't it? It's not like a sensory it's not like a sensory feeling, but it's so unbearable, isn't it? Or when you're depressed or jealous, it's hard to see where it is, because it seems to pervade all of us. But it's mental consciousness, not sensory. It's not meant to just be intellectual. This distinction is huge. So the key, the thing to get to know is mental consciousness. Now, as far as mental consciousness is concerned, there are two levels as well. One is the very gross level that we live at only ever, unless we do a lot of work. And that's called conceptuality. And then we have a subtle level of mental consciousness, which we don't even posit as existing in modern psychology or neuroscience, because we've never discovered it. These genius Indians, more than 3,000 years ago, they discovered it by cultivating this brilliant technique called how to get single point of concentration of samadhi. They discovered the subtle levels of their own minds, which is beyond the gross level, beyond the sensory, beyond the gross mental. Geniuses, But we live at the grosser level, the grosser, the tip of the iceberg of our own mental consciousness. And that's the part that's shocking. When we say it's all conceptual, when we think conceptual, we think, musical theory is conceptual, mathematics is conceptual, clever philosophical ideas are conceptual. Yes, they are. But surprisingly and shockingly to us, all these emotional states of mind, mental illnesses, afflictions like anger, attachment, jealousy, compassion, love and compassion too, the positive ones. Remember, the Buddha divides all the mental conscious into three categories. Forget the third one for the moment. The so-called negative neurotic ones, anger, jealousy, depression, and the so-called positive ones, love, compassion, kindness. They're all, we function at this level of gross conceptuality, which includes those emotions. So when we can understand this, we have an insight into how Buddhist psychology works. Therefore, with confidence, can know how we can then get rid of, or even simply lessen, the neurotic ones. Because if they're just emotional and if they're physical, how can you get rid of them? You can't cut pieces of yourself out. Back in the 1930s, we had lobotomies, thinking you cut a piece of the brain out. We just turned people into veggies, That was not helpful. So understanding this very precise, unique approach to Buddhist psychology, there's all these emotional, unhappy parts of our mental consciousness are rooted in conceptual thoughts. And an easy way to prove that, it's a really easy way to prove this, it's a really easy way to prove it, I tell you. I always use this example, it's so simple. Like when you see a person, let's say a kid, well, grown up, shouting and yelling and screaming, you go, oh, look at that, she's angry. What you're seeing is a person all over the place, their hands flailing, tears coming out of their eyes, eyes wide, mouth open. And then what they hear is all these irrational words coming out of their mouth, right? Isn't it? Oh, look at that. She's angry, we'll say. So how's that conceptual? Well, just write down what they're saying. Transcribe it. Say it again. You, I hate you. Write it all down. And what have you got on a piece of paper? A bunch of words. How dare you do that to me? You are evil. You are the cause of all my suffering. I hate you, blah, blah, blah. They are words, people, but they're just said with a lot of shouting and physical, intensity. But they're words. And what are words? Expressions of thoughts. And what are thoughts? Concepts. So logically, that anger fit, we get so caught up in the physical part, don't we? Oh, look at that, she's angry. We see the emotion, the shouting, the yelling. That's just physical. The shouting and the yelling is physical. The words are more subtle, and they're coming from what? The most subtle? The mind. So it's obvious. Anger is coming down to being conceptual stories. So you write down those words, and anybody, and then you got this other one. Let's say you have a person who doesn't express their anger, who has good behavior, who doesn't shout, who doesn't flail and scream, but they know their mind. They will then tell you their angry thoughts. Their thoughts, if you write 2 bits of paper, you can't hear any shouting. And the person who merely has angry thoughts, they might be even more violent than the person who shouts. Are you seeing my point? Anger is in the mind. But you see a person who's smiling. I mean, you read about it. I remember one guy years ago, one of these people, German fellow, who was a pilot, and he intentionally, consciously had planned it for months, smashed a plane full of people into a mountain. He kept it secret. Nobody knew. Nobody knew he was a maniac, angry dude with violent, violent thoughts. Remember that fellow who had the 2 big suitcases in some hotel? Was it at that big party was it Las Vegas? And he shot all those people at a party. Remember that one? A few years ago? Remember that one? Had big machine guns. That was for me most fascinating. Of course, the first thing people do, the doctors, the police, the FBI, they go to his computer and looking for evidence. Nobody could find a single moment of any evidence of any negativity whatsoever. His brother was so stunned. His family simply could not believe that this was the action of this man. In other words, he obviously was planning it for years. This multi-murder with big guns. Do you understand what I'm saying? But he kept it deep inside. He showed no evidence of it. It can't just happen out of the blue that he goes and buys 2 guns and next minute is shooting 35 people. It's in his mind, but he doesn't express it. Now, relatively speaking, many people are like that. Don't even know. But don't even know because they don't express. They don't even know what they're thinking. But he had this plan. He showed aspect of kindness. He had this Filipino girlfriend, and he made sure that he sent her off to the Philippines well before he did this action. It was all deeply, precisely planned. That's called anger. Violent, violent, violent anger. Are we communicating? In his mind. But he had control over it. Whatever reason, so strange. So we live at the level of conceptuality. That's the Buddhist analysis. Thoughts. But when they're strong, that's why they're emotional, is because if they're strongly habitual from past karma, the habit to be angry, the habit to be jealous, the habit to harm, the habit to lie, steal, kill, the habit coming from the mind, forget the actions, but coming from the mind, the habit of anger, the habit of attachment, coming from past habit, that's where they come from, not from your mummy and daddy. They come from your own past practice of them. So they're instinctive, aren't they? I mean, we use the term instinct. It's very interesting. What do we mean by instinct? It means it comes automatically, But the Buddhist view, it doesn't come from mummy and daddy. It doesn't come from the moon. It doesn't come from nowhere. It doesn't come from a creator. Can't blame God. But the Buddhist is very simple. It comes from past habits. Okay, you've got to posit the possibility of non-physical consciousness to take that on board. It's not a complicated concept. Got to prove it eventually. And you bring your habits with you. So then the moment you come out into this life, you know, you read about I remember reading these, you know, like this serial killer years ago. Jeffrey Dahmer, I remember his name, Jeffrey Dahmer, years and years ago in the 70s or 80s or something. I remember reading about him. And he talked about how when he's a very little boy, very small boy, he had this intense impulse to torture creatures. His mother hadn't taught him, you know. He didn't know why. He was intensely attracted to it. And of course, because he got pleasure from it, because the habit that you have to do something, it gives you pleasure. That's why you do it, you know. Whether it's to kill fish, to torture people. Like my friend on death row, friend of my friend, Mitchell, the Buddhist, he's a Buddhist, and his friend, I can't think of his name now, I met him. As Mitchell said, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. It's his mind, concepts, thoughts. Okay, in death row, he can't go around torturing his friends. They won't allow it. You know, but it's in his mind, and the habit is so strong he can't stop thinking it. That's how habits are. They're there in the mind as concepts, vivid visualizations, vivid fantasies, you know, which are the habits in your mind. They're concepts. They're all concepts. It's clear they're concepts. But when they're strong, when they're deeply habitual, that's when they become what we call emotional. That's when they hit the body. And the body feels them. But our tragedy in our culture is we don't know what's going on in our mind, even at a fairly gross level, until we feel it in our body. This is tragic. Because it's too late. Better than nothing to notice it. What'll I do when I'm about to kill my boyfriend? It's like asking, what'll I do when I'm about to, you know, the wheels are about to fall off. The wheels have fallen off at 120 kilometers an hour, miles an hour on the road. What'll I do? A bit late. You'd consulted mechanics beforehand. When they started to wobble, you'd never get to the point of the wheels falling off. And that's the point here. The brilliant skill the Buddha gives us, forget nirvana, bodhicitta, emptiness, Buddhahood, just the skill he gives us by utilizing these concentration meditation techniques, we can learn to become familiar with our thoughts before they vomit out the mouth, before you want to kill somebody, before you're lying in bed profoundly depressed and can't move. That's the brilliant skill that Buddha's giving us, to be noticing the thoughts deeper down before they rise to the surface and vomit out your mouth. That's the understanding that comes when we realize they're all anger, attachment, love, compassion are based on being conceptual thoughts. And that's where the analysis happens. Because now you can begin by listening. That's why if you write everything down, if you just were able to put down your thoughts on a piece of paper, it's helpful. People take notes. It's good. You can do an analysis. Oh, that's an angry thought. There's a jealous thought. There's a loving thought. There's a kind thought. There's a self-loathing thought. Every word there, it will tell you exactly the person. They're exposing themselves nakedly to you. And therefore to yourself. You start to listen and have an ability to analyze those conceptual thoughts. So some of them will be positive conceptual thoughts and some will be neurotic. This is such a profound distinction, but we never use this concept in modern psychology. It sounds judgmental, you know. And our problem as well in the West with our modern psychological models, when you hear a person say, I hate my mother, there's a concept of thought of anger, right? So we start to wander off and then start to think what the mother must have done. She might have done something, but she might not have. We assume she must have. So we hear it as an indication of some other problem, whereas for the Buddha, that's the problem itself. It's called anger. It's highly complicated, but we make it more complicated. Are we communicating, people? It's all common sense, don't you think? I think it's complete common sense. What do you think, Eileen? I bet Eileen has a question. I love Eileen because she's always comes up with a question. What's your question, Eileen?
I actually do. Thank you. I have two. I have two, if I may.
Talk to me, Eileen.
Yeah, I have two, if I may.
He's on mute.
Which one? Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Do you need me to?
Which one have you got? Which one are you trying to find? What do you want to trying to find?
Speaker, so it would be MacBook Air.
Which one are you trying to find, dear?
Uh,
Talk again.
Yes, can you hear me,
Yeah,
Sonny?
Go talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you've got to make it louder, please, Sonny. Dear, Sonny, come back. Make
Let
it
me
louder.
try to make it louder. Wait, hold on.
Make it
Am I-
louder. No, I've done that one. It's done as high as possible. Do it down here.
Uh.
Sonny, here it is.
We gotta
We've
get the
got the thing
arrow.
out of the way. So
the
do the arrow. So which one do you want?
Okay, so,
Which do you want?
so it should be on MacBook Air. And then also try
Which one? Test speaker and to phone, leave computer, audio settings. Here we go, audio settings. We have to make them louder. Here it is here. There we go. Talk, Sonny, talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. All right, great. Thank you, Robina. I have two questions, if I may. One is, can you hear me?
Just a minute. Wait. There's big wretched things in the way. There it is. No, it's going out. It won't get out of the way. How do you make it? Oh, here it is. Closed. Okay, I'm listening. Talk to me.
All right, thank you. I have two questions, if I may, very good. One is that obviously at death, the senses break down. The sensory consciousness, the ears, the eyes, everything.
Sleep as well. Every time you go to sleep, it's the same thing.
Right. So the only thing we take with us then is that mental consciousness, obviously, right? Okay. Here's my second question. Since I know our karma results taking rebirths in many different ways, environmentally, but on a physical level, if we're born with certain things on a sensory level, certain blindness, or we can't hear, or certain things like that.
Or on the other hand, if you can hear and aren't blind, they're all sensory. You know, if you've got all your five senses working or you haven't got your five senses working, they're both the result of karma.
That's what I'm asking.
And what's so, of course they are. It goes without saying, everything you experience. One of the ways that karma ripens is in the way your body is, which is environmental. So one way your karma ripens is the type of human, you got a human birth or a dog birth or whatever. The second way your karma ripens is the tendencies in your mind. The third way is how you're seen and treated by others. I say it like that simply. And the fourth is the way the physical world impacts upon you, including your physical body. So if you're sick all the time or have, you know, or you can't eat or the food is polluted, or you got eyes missing or nose missing. That's all environmental karma.
All right. That was my
good and bad, you know, both.
Yes.
And there's not a single thing we experience that isn't the fruit of our actions. There's not a single thing. It's a very simple principle to remember.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Robina. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else have questions? Questions. Oh, sweetheart, yes.
My question is, for the example of mass shooter or the serial killer.
What, sweetheart?
The earlier when you mentioned the mass shooter or the serial killer, how
I can't say it again. The what?
the mass shooter.
Oh yeah, the man I mentioned. Yes. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yes, good.
Okay.
Yes, darling. The mass shooter. Yes. Go.
And my question is, what's your view on spirits? And would that be a possibility that they inflicted some kind of spirit?
Absolutely. This is really very common. So let me explain this one. As we might know from the Buddhist perspective, there are many types of rebirth, you know. Some beings like a human, some are animals, some are called spirits, which means they've got a physical body, but it's subtle, kind of the elements are very subtle. Their mind is conjoined. You could argue, you see, the Vajrayana model is we're all got our physicality is made of the four elements. The entire world, the physical world is the four elements. Our bodies are the four elements, and all of our minds are conjoined with their own set of the four elements. So there can be beings who, due to very powerful attachment energy, are reborn in a world of what they call spirits, where their mind, mainly their physical energy, you could argue, is predominantly the air energy. Their mind is conjoined with predominantly the air energy, and they flit from pillar to post, and they can enter into people, they can influence people. Absolutely. It's one of the commonest ways so many people suffer terribly. Absolutely. By trying to get the spirits to get out of the way. Oh, those clever, wise, powerful, holy beings can do that. I've seen so many examples, but sometimes when it's very strong, I mean, there's a woman I know, many stories, so many stories. There's one story, I can tell you some stories. One story, just recently, is a friend of mine. Remember, were you here on Sunday with Rinpoche? Were you here on Sunday with Rinpoche?
No.
Who you were, some of you. We did those prayers, remember, for the boy. That was his problem. Suddenly, 6 months ago, this boy in Australia, he was at one of the centers and suddenly woke up and this screaming person inside him, yelling and screaming and abusing him and even using his body, screaming his own words out of his own body. That's exactly what happens. They use the person's body. So Rinpoche said that the different divinations indicated that it could be fixed easily, that the spirit could leave, But there's another person I know who's been possessed for years and years and years and years, 30, 40 years, by certain beings who live about here, she said. And no matter what the lamas do, it doesn't help. The karma's so strong between them. Another story, Geshe Lama Kontrog, this amazing yogi lama of ours, who this years ago in the mountains, one time one of the nuns in the monastery, the sister nuns came up to Geshe Lama in his cave and said, "Oh, Annie Tenzin's gone crazy, Annie Tenzin's gone crazy." So he went down to the nunnery, and there's this nun in the bed with a very deep voice, kind of crazy. And Genla, because he's clairvoyant, can see exactly, it's a local spirit, a local being, a local human who died recently is reborn as a spirit and possessing the nun. And often these spirits, because it's something you've got some karma with you, or their spirits, which is attachment, there's something you've got of theirs that they want. This is, for me, it really shows, you be careful about where you buy your things. So this spirit, Genla said to him, "What do you want?" Said to the spirit in the nun, right? And the nun with her loud, deep voice, the spirit talking, said, "I want my pink thermos with the white flowers. I want my pink thermos with the white flowers." And there it was. And they remembered the villager recently who died had given this nun a thermos of tea, and she'd forgotten to return the thermos. Of course, they're all deadly poor there. But I mean, just a thermos. He dies with his strong attachment and he wants to get his bloody thermos back. So you're driven by your possessions. So this is where attachment to things is so important to get rid of. Do you understand me? Look at the attachment we have now to things. We're going to get reborn as a spirit. And I mean, even there's a story in the text. I mean, that's the thing. You're attached, so you want your object. So he was in tears. He wanted his bloody thermos. So because Genla knew him, he could do things to help him leave the body and get a good human birth, And I mean, that's so moving, but when the karma's really strong, nothing you can do. I mean, there's other woman I remember okay, I'm taking this view as a given. I'm not clairvoyant, but I'm telling you, I take this view as a given, right? So this one woman who started emailing me from Canada, sweet lady, she could hardly get words out even in her email, because she said one day in a cafe 2 or 3 years ago, suddenly from her left side, intense energy went into her, and from that time, never stopping, screaming, abusing, day and night, 24 hours a day. Corey in the weekend, only occasionally, this dude pops up, But this woman, 24 hours a day. So she completely lost her mind. I mean, you would. Can you imagine the pain, the suffering? I mean, this is the thing about doing bad things. Is what also they're just making them crazy, but some use 30, 40 years ago in England, there was this famous murderer called the Yorkshire Ripper. Although he lived in Leeds or somewhere, and he would get up at night and go to the red light district and get prostitutes and rape them and murder them. And there was numbers of them. And during the day, he's a regular guy, right? And so then he was put into prison. People think he's an evil monster, but the way he talked, it was clear he was possessed, And he'd say, because people say hear voices, they tell me what. Many of these people who murder now, I was told to do it. That's what spirits do. But people think they're hallucinating. But he said one time, because what happened was he'd wake up at night and then the spirits would start telling him to, and he called it God. God told him, God said it. Do you understand? They take it seriously. And he knew it was wrong. And one day it was so moving when he reported it. Of course, the world doesn't think this. He said he was driving, pushed by this voice to go and murder again. And he didn't want to. So he forced himself to put his foot on the brake and turn around and go home. He said he felt so happy that he didn't do it, So can you imagine being used like that? Do you understand? By these heavy duty spirits. Of course, the world thinks you're mentally ill talking this way. So it's really suffering. So, especially where there's strong attachment energy, like in prisons, sometimes you just can, even the letters people write, you can feel it. They're heavy, they're possessed by beings and hearing voices. That so many people suffering is this. So much of it is this, being misused due to past karma. You might have a husband who beats you up. You might have a person who is, rapes you tomorrow, but some of them are spirits. So they harm. There's one woman I met one time in Queensland. Said she'd been to Kopan, Lama Lundup, did all these practices, and nothing worked. She said she's possessed by several people. And said they raped me. She talked like that. And as she's talking to me, you could see, physically she's changing. It's very fascinating. Very horrible, isn't it? I mean, in the West, we think this is just insanity because we don't posit such a thing, And Christians will just say it's all the devil, but it's not. It's individual beings whom you have karma with, Do you understand? So yes, absolutely. Really tragic. Really sad. Yeah.
So you said the Lama helped the spirit get a human rebirth?
Sorry, what? Yeah, that one, the nun one. Yeah, because the spirit had a strong connection with Geshe-la. The spirit even could see it was Geshe-la, and Geshe-la knew who it was, the villager, because he had a strong karmic connection. He was able to help the spirit leave and help him get a human rebirth because he had the connection with him. He was able to help him.
Who's responsible for their own?
Well, of course they are. It doesn't mean you can't. Well, what do you mean? Of course you are responsible for your own karma. You mean people can't help you? You're responsible for the sickness you get. Your clients are responsible for their sickness, Veronica, but they come to you and you can help them. How come? Because they've got karma with you and you've got a skill. The same, darling. Identical. You see my point? Just again, I was more skillful than you, that's all. Do you understand me? It's skill. You've got wisdom, they've got the karma with you. But if somebody doesn't have the karma with you, no matter how many needles you put in, they will not get better. Do you see my point? That's exactly the same. Do you understand?
So it's their own help.
Well, everything's our own karma. The sickness everybody gets is their karma, but they happen to have the virtuous karma to meet an acupuncturist who can help them. It's dependent arising. The same with a lama. You might have a lama who helps your mind because you've got karma with that lama. You do the work. You take the advice. You created the cause. Do you see? It's dependent arising. We can be helped or harmed same way. It's exactly the same thing. Do you understand? Good. It's an important point, isn't it? It doesn't contradict, in other words. It's not your own karma from its own side. It's dependent arising. Do you understand? Who's that? Yes, Cyril. Talk to me, Cyril.
Yes, dear Venerable, thank you for the teachings.
Oh,
I
darling.
have a question concerning the environmental and
The what, sweetheart?
concerning karma in general. Since last May, where I've done a retreat on camel binding, I've noticed radical changes in my life and body and environment. For example, when I came back from this retreat, I was at the phone with my brother, and I had the information that there was some animal in my kitchen, just like an insect. And so I've been I've been in the kitchen, and there was an insect. And then since then, many radical changes have happened in my life.
What do you mean, darling? What do you mean, Cyril? What do you mean? What kind of changes? What do you mean, darling?
For example, my body is changing. Is changing.
What's the question, sweetheart? What's the question, Cyril?
Yes, the question is um, how to know what has happened during this time. What kind of changes has happened, which could explain these radical changes
I
in
don't
myself.
understand your question, Cyril. I
So
don't understand your question.
what kind of events and karma is the cause of these changes in my life,
I have
body?
no idea because I don't know what the changes are. You haven't told me. Changes might be in sickness. Well, that's due to past killing. Changes might be that, a spirit comes and possesses you and makes you do things. That's due to harming in the past. So, and I mean, we've discussed before many times, I think, you're hearing people and listening to things that these beings, they're probably spirits harming you, Cyril. That's what I've said to you many times.
Okay. And is it possible to, for example, uh, to uh, to die without noticing it? For example, during my
What do
sleep?
you mean, darling? Of course it is. I mean,
Yes.
why with ignorance? We've got a long way to go before we get realizations of clarity and wisdom. We're going to die with lots of ignorance. Of course, we're going to die. It depends on how much work you do.
So, for example, if someone dies during his sleep, for example, is it possible to, in some rare cases, to reborn in the same body?
No, darling, it's not. The
No,
body's
it's possible.
finished. It can't
Okay.
be this way, Cyril. It
Sorry?
can't be this way. It cannot be this, Cyril. The body's turned into yucky junk. How can you get reborn in it again? Not possible, darling. There's some high beings who might be able to find a dead body, and that's what a zombie is. That some heavy beings, spirits, can enter into a dead body and make it walk again. That's a possibility. That's kind of called what's called a zombie. Yeah, possible. Some dudes, mostly
Okay.
not. Mostly not.
These radical changes in my life, how can I explain this?
Well, I don't
Because,
know. You have to tell me one of them. Just give me an example of one of the
for
radical.
example, things are getting very much unreal, like in a dream. For example, in my apartment, I do not need to clean the apartment. It's always clean. Like there is no dirt anymore, you know.
Okay, I'm very happy for you. That's very good karma.
For
Next,
example, so
the other one.
it looks like very unreal because before I have to do
I understand. Well, that's,
cleaning.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Cyril, what's another example of a radical change?
Another example, for example, things are changing very fast, very fast. For example, and looks like very unreal. For example, I have traveled to Belgium last week,
Yeah.
and the city was very strange
Why,
with
darling?
people who were very young. So it was very unusual.
I don't know
And
what you mean, sweetheart. Unusual.
unusual because a
Yeah.
city where there are only teenagers or
Okay,
young
I don't know
adults.
about all that, Cyril. I don't know, darling. I have a feeling, and I've said this to you many times. I want to say it. I'm not trying to be rude about you, but you have so many hallucinations and so much suffering with these ideas you have and views and seeing ladies who you thought were the lady and not. All of this, Cyril, you've got some karma with the Dharma. You've got to really try to practice, and you've got to you've got to try and purify all this because it's just very strong suffering for you, Cyril. I don't know what practices you do, but darling, we've talked about it often enough in emails, and maybe it's best we discuss it again in email because you have a lot of this suffering and it's kind of hallucinations and problems and weird things happening. I agree with you. It's due to your
Yes,
negative karma, Cyril. You've got to
yes, yes.
purify it. You've got to purify it, sweetheart, by doing the four opponent powers. You've got to regret strongly all the harm you've done to others in the past. You've got to have compassion for the harm you've done. Then you have to purify and then you vow not to do again. But you need support from holy beings and lamas and practices, Cyril, sweetheart,
Okay,
my
thank
dear.
you. And how to make things more real, more
I'm
realistic
telling you
and
the answer. That's my
purifying?
answer, Petal. What I just
Purifying?
said to you is my answer,
Okay,
Cyril.
okay,
What I just
okay,
said to you, precious one, is my answer. You have
okay,
all
okay.
suffering, so much suffering, sweetheart. All
Yeah,
these
yeah,
years,
yeah.
there's so much pain. I hear it. You've got
Okay,
to do your practice, which you have, but you've got to find a way to get holy beings to support you, to purify this heavy karma. But you've got to know it's due to your past karma, and you've got to know what a hallucination is and what is real. And you find it very hard to distinguish, Cyril. That's the
For
tragedy.
example, another example, since
No more examples. I don't want more examples, darling.
okay, okay,
Understand very well what you're saying. And I always pray for you, and I want you to continue to practice and try to distinguish between what is real and what is fantasy, Cyril. That's the key. Please.
okay.
Heart.
And how to distinguish between what is real
I
and
just told you by
sorry?
practicing Dharma, by developing wisdom, by recognizing your delusions, by owning responsibility for your karma, by beginning slowly to try to do it. It's not easy, Cyril, but it's possible.
Okay,
Sweetheart.
okay.
Rely upon
Thank
your
you.
practice. Rely upon what Buddhas do you like? What Buddhas do you
Sorry?
rely upon? What Buddhas do you rely upon, Cyril? Which Buddhas do you like?
I
Who do you
like
pray
Buddha
to?
Tara, I like Buddha Guru Rinpoche, I like Buddha Shakyamuni.
You pray to Guru Rinpoche. He's powerful and he will make all the trouble go away. You pray strongly to Guru Rinpoche. You say his prayers. You invite him in to protect you and guide you and look after you. Okay?
Okay, thank
Strongly
you.
with faith, please, darling.
Okay, thank you.
You understand, sweetheart?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm trying to practice.
I
Maybe
know you
love
are.
and compassion is important
It's
to make
important, but
things
wisdom
more
as
real.
well. Mixed
Sorry,
with wisdom, Cyril.
sorry. Mixed with wisdom. Yeah.
Mixed with wisdom. All right, darling. Enough for now. We'll talk later. Okay, sweetheart?
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Somebody else. Somebody else. Someone else. Oh. Yes, Rosanna.
Venerable, I'm trying to help me understand the difference between mental and sensory.
Oh, good. Okay, go on.
When the only time I can say I've really experienced that,
What do you mean experience it?
when I had chronic pain,
That's sensory.
this was,
And then, go on.
and then I noticed what my mind and my
Yeah, that's exactly,
thoughts-
like interpretation is the mental. That's the point. Yeah, exactly.
I made a journal on what my mind was saying every time. the
That's
pain
right. And that's your
was-
mental just to put these words on it. So your mind is your mental consciousness
Right.
interpreting the pain.
Okay.
And that's where we can have the revelation of beginning to distinguish between the sensory and the mental and realizing, see what happens now when we have pain, even as I say, the stubbing of the toe, a simple example, we
Right.
just assume that it's natural to be angry. It's natural to be
Yes.
depressed. We don't ever think they're different. And that's the revelation that they're different. And we can decide to change our interpretation of the pain. And that's what you're saying you're learning. That's practice.
That's helped me so much.
That's right.
In relation to the pain itself.
That's right.
I felt like I finally had control. Not all the time, but many times I could really control.
Your,
because I would go to
your
my
interpretation of it.
mind.
your
My
response to
interpretation was
it.
different.
That's right.
I was
Exactly.
Afraid of it.
Exactly.
I went into my-
Exactly. That's the one. That's what. And if you think about it, Rosanna, the physical experience, in a sense, from the Buddhist perspective, is an external thing. In just the same way that somebody poking their tongue at you or shouting at you is outside you, and so we automatically go, well, of course I'm angry. No, you can change your interpretation. Exactly the same as the body. But because in our culture the body and the mind are the same, we don't think it's an external. Really, technically, the physical is an external event. Internal is mental consciousness. Do you understand my point? It's
Yes.
exactly the same practice as putting up with an angry person. Exactly the same. Do you understand me?
Yes.
And when we can see that, it's a revelation for our daily way of living our lives.
It's helped me so much.
Exactly. I'm sure.
And now I'm trying to incorporate that.
Yeah.
in many other things.
Exactly.
Instead of having it just to be the severe pain.
That's
where
right.
I go into notice my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm trying very hard to make that as my practice.
That's the
for
point.
many things.
Everything. That's exactly what Buddhist practice is.
Yeah.
Realizing that our mental states, our conceptual thoughts, our emotions, and are what interpret the outside world. Do you understand? And we can learn to change, like the example I use about people in prison. Of course, no one wants to go to prison. No one wants to stub their toe. But we can learn to see, and that's exactly what the Sunny example is, that woman, it's always a story. It's exactly the same. That's actually what Buddhist practice is. This is the essence of it, Rosanna, that we can change our thoughts, which is really our interpretations of things. That's the point. That's what I'm saying to Cyril, to learn to distinguish between what is real and what is not. And it's very hard, as Cyril says, how to do it. It's very hard. Especially you have strong karma, like Cyril has, to have these weird experiences. It's very hard not to believe what we're seeing. It's very hard. It's really hard. And that's why even ordinary people, I don't mean Cyril's not ordinary, I mean, even just the experience of if you really don't like your next door neighbor and they shout at you, it's impossible to see how that next door neighbor being angry is seen through the lenses of my anger. We think he's angry out there and I'm this innocent victim of it. But when we realize that we're seeing him through the lenses of our anger, he appears more ugly. But if we see him through the lens of kindness, he doesn't appear so bad. That's the whole point. This is exactly what Buddhist practice is. This is the essence of it. Do you understand?
Chronic pain helps me.
I hear it. I hear it. Exactly.
I feel very grateful.
I hear it. I hear it, darling. I hear it
To
exactly.
do it every day.
That's right.
Now that's another.
Exactly.
level.
That's
It's
another
good.
level. That's right.
Every day it's like chronic pain.
That's
Not
right.
Really, but.
No.
no,
Every day there's
it's-
some event that
Yes.
we interpret, and we have to look at the interpretation and not the event. Well, the event is a catalyst. Seeing,
Yes.
if you don't like Mr. Trump, see him as merely a catalyst for your mind, not, oh, Mr. Trump, this and that, as if it's objectively this and that. Everything that's in the outside world, we're going to respond to it in one way or another. And the essence of Buddhist practice is to develop virtuous, positive, valid, reasonable, appropriate interpretations. Do you understand? And then not buy into the negative, delusional, ridiculous, neurotic interpretations. That's really a way of saying what Buddhist practice is. Rosanna. And as you said, the pain was one of the first steps in the right direction for you.
It is,
That's
it,
right.
it's, it felt powerful to have a pain.
Exactly, I understand.
Instead of me as a victim.
Exactly, exactly.
Of it. So,
Mhm.
thank you.
Good, darling. Sheila. Very thirsty. What else, people? What else? Is your hand up again, Cyril, is it? What do you want to say, darling?
Yes, dear Venerable Robina, I would like to know what is the difference between what is real and what is unreal according
What
to
is real is what is objectively happening, and what is unreal is our interpretation, a distorted interpretation of what is happening. That's the distinction, Cyril. And if the karma is if we have very strong tendency to hallucinate, then we will believe that what is out there objectively. That's the key to what Buddha's saying. So our deluded states of mind, due to our past karma, create the environment in which we believe certain things are happening. And Buddha's saying we are all hallucinating in one way or another, but some of us are more extreme than others. Like, if, in other words, an ordinary example is if a person's very angry, that's just they've got anger, they'll always see enemies wherever they go. Even if a person isn't hating them, they are so paranoid, they will believe the person is harming them. That's hallucination. Now, maybe when you went to Belgium, the city might have been full of young people, but I would suggest that's a hallucination. Cyril, I suggest that's due to some heavy karma from yours in the past, that your delusions are causing you to believe you are only seeing. Like the other example, when you saw that woman, you believe you saw that woman. That's hallucinating. But you don't, it's hard to see the difference, Cyril. It's hard. So that's why you've got to practice and purify and at least try not to believe in what you're seeing. And even the smallest thing, try to check. Is it true? It's not easy, Cyril, but you must protect yourself. Okay, sweetheart?
Okay, thank you very much. And
Good job.
and what is the best protection?
Guru Rinpoche, I just told you.
Okay.
Have faith
Thank
in him, sweetheart. So you hold on to him, as well as watch your mind every day, darling, and protect yourself. Do you understand?
Okay.
Do you understand, darling?
Yes, to protect.
Do your best, Cyril. Do your best to protect yourself. Do your best to do your practice every day. Do your best, Cyril. That's all you can do, sweetheart.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right, darling. Thank
you
you.
very much, Venerable.
Thank you, sweetheart. What else, people?
There's a question in the chat
Go on, tell me what it is.
from Sophia.
I can't hear you.
A question from Sophia.
Good, yes.
What seeds can we sow so that my experience of the world is that big business and governments have...
Sorry, what?
What seeds can we sow so that my experience of the world is that big business and governments act out of true care and concern of the general population?
Okay, so put it this way, Sophia, if we are living in a world where we keep seeing everywhere we look corrupt governments, and that's also could be an objective reality, not what I'm talking about, Cyril, that can be an objective reality, then you've got to first admit and own that that's due to your negative karma, that you are living in a world where the governments are corrupt. It's your external karmic appearance. Whereas if you live in another country where the government's lovely and sweet and you don't have television, you never hear about corrupt governments, that's due to your virtuous karma. Whatever we experience outside, everything we see, everything we hear, everything we see is due to our past actions. It can be real, or in some cases, I'm suggesting for Cyril, it can't be real. Both are due to karma. So if you want to be born in a country where the only pure government and lovely people, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't do any of the negative actions. Purify your mind. That's the cause. Do you see, Sophia? Sweetheart, are you clear? Good, darling.
Yes.
Yes, I can't see her.
Thank you, Venerable.
Good, sweetheart. Do you understand me?
Yes, so continue to purify, do the purification practice.
Live according to vows, and don't kill and don't steal and don't lie. Because every one of the things that we see, one, the type of rebirth we get is the fruit of virtue, is karma. So you've got a human birth. That's the fruit of non-killing. Amazing. Two, you've got a mind with tendencies. So if you see any negative tendencies in there, it's the habit of having done it before. So purify those. Three, bad things might happen to you. You see lousy governments, mean people, wars, terrorism, stealing, killing, lying, harming. That's due to your non-virtuous karma that you're even seeing it, sweetheart, not to mention happening to you. And every virtuous thing you see, every good person you see, every good thing that happens to you, that's the fruit of your virtuous karma. And fourth, even the physical world, the environment, the way it impacts upon us is also due to our karma. Do you understand, Sophia?
Yes, Venerable.
Good, darling. Sweetheart, good. What else? Any questions there?
Yes, dear Venerable Robina, I would like to know concerning the weather. For example, if it is rainy and cloudy,
That's due to
like
karma as well, darling.
sorry,
What's the question?
what is the karma which is the cause of a rainy or
I
cloudy
don't know.
weather?
When it comes just to the four elements, I don't know that answer. That's more subtle. I don't know. I mean, it depends also if you like the rain. Maybe you need the rain because your veggies are in the ground and they need rain. So which means it's it's the result of virtue. But if it's too much rain, that's the result of non-virtue. So these are very subtle details. I don't know. But in general, if it's useful to you, that's the fruit of virtuous karma. And if it's not useful to you, it's the fruit of non-virtuous karma. You'd say that. Do you understand, Cyril?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Good, darling. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Okay, sweetheart. 3 o'clock, go. Yes, go. Who? Paola, speak to me, darling. Speak to me, Paola.
Thank you very much, Venerable Robina.
Yes.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What can we do if we are with someone who screams and yells because he or she is angry?
Okay. Do you live with this person or is it your next door neighbor? Or do you
No, I'm thinking about a student of mine today who sat on a chair of another student, and this student thinks that's her chair, talking about attachment, as if it belonged to her, and starts yelling, telling the other students off.
What's the question, sweetheart? In relation to that,
What can this is a question between them, and they raise the question in the classroom, and they ask me what to do. So what can I tell them?
Paola. So you have two people fighting over one chair. And
Yeah.
what did the students ask you?
And they raised the issue.
What was the issue they said?
They said, this is what happened. I don't like this situation. What can we do?
I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry.
What do you mean, Paola? Two people fighting over one chair. And what do you mean they raised the issue with you? What do you mean?
They told me in front of the class, they told me about this. The question is, what can I say to them?
Paola, I don't understand your question. Were these people asking you for a practical solution, meaning that they wanted you to choose the person who belongs to the chair, or are they asking you how to work with this internally as a spiritual practice? Which do you mean?
The second one.
You mean they asked you what to do with this spiritually?
No, they asked me, how can we solve this issue? How can we solve this problem?
I mean, how can you decide?
Again
do you mean, Paola, listen, do you mean they wanted you to decide whose chair it was?
No.
No, they wanted to know how they can discuss whose chair it is.
No, the student who took the chair to the other student said that the other student made her feel uncomfortable, offended her. She just said that she offended her and
Paola, I'm sorry, darling, but much more specific. You're making it so general.
Okay.
Now you're saying that simply one student has a problem, not the second one. So please tell me exactly what happened. Exactly. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened.
Okay. There's a student who usually sits beside another student every day. And today, a third student came and sat on...
Okay, so stop right there. So she stayed in the chair. There was no discussion. She stayed there, did she? She stayed, that third student stayed in the chair, did she?
Yes. And
No,
then the
stop,
other
stop,
one
stop,
came.
please. And then the second student came along and noticed that her chair was taken.
Yeah, and
Did
she
the second
started
student
offending.
ask, please, did the second student ask a question or did the second student accept it?
No, she didn't accept it. She started offending her.
Okay, stop, stop, stop. So she came and spoke and she said to the third student, get out of that chair, it's mine.
Yeah,
What did the third student do?
she didn't move.
She didn't move, and what did the second student do?
She sat behind her.
Okay, then, so who came to you later? The third or the second?
The second student
Came to you and said what?
she raised her hand and in front
In the
of
class, in the class, at the end of the class or the beginning or what?
in the class.
Okay, in the class, the second student who sat in the back raised her hand and said what?
No, the student who sat on
That's
her.
the third student. What did the
Okay, the third student.
say? What did she say to you?
She said that the other student made her feel uncomfortable and told her not to ever sit on that chair.
Stop,
And
please stop. Who said not to ever sit on the chair? Who said that? The third or the second?
the third.
So the third student, please repeat what the third student said. She put her hand up and then what?
No, the second student, the one who came and
Back,
sat
the one at the
on
back,
the
who
wrong
had to sit in
chair.
the back. The one who sat in the back. She was
No.
upset. The third student who sat in the wrong chair. Which one?
The one who sat on the wrong chair.
Okay, that's the third student.
Okay,
so
the third student.
She say? What did she say?
She raised her hand and she said that the other student made her feel uncomfortable and started yelling at her.
Did she yell or did she not yell? What are you saying?
She yelled.
Who yelled? The second student.
The one who sat on the back.
That's the second student.
Okay, the second.
So who spoke to you? Who put their hand up first?
The third.
And what exactly did the third student say to you? Not what you think they meant.
Yeah.
She
said, there is a situation here. I feel uncomfortable because my colleague asked me, my classmate asked me to not to sit on this chair again.
Okay,
and she started yelling and shouting at me.
Paola, please stop. Please stop. So the third student said that, and what did you answer her?
I said, I looked at my chair and ironically, I was trying to not make fun of it, but ironically, I said, oh, there is no name on any chair. We can sit wherever we want.
And that's all you said? That was the end of it?
No.
Or did the third student continue to say something?
No, I continue to say that it's a good thing to be nice to each other. That
okay, and did the second
nice to each other in
the
class.
student who sat behind, who was upset, did she say something?
Nothing.
Well, then why are you asking me the question? You solved the bloody problem. This 10-minute discussion has been unnecessary. You answered the problem. You gave advice. What's your problem? What was wrong with your advice?
Okay. No, thank you. You answered my question. I don't know if I was right.
Paola, it helps be clear. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Are you clear now?
Very clear.
There's many other things you could have said, but you gave some advice which seemed quite wise. So enough, let them deal with their problem, okay? Thank you, Paola.
Thank you.
It's good to be precise. Do you see the reason?
I am sorry.
No, I didn't ask you to be sorry. I'm not criticizing you. I repeat, it is good to be precise. Do you see that?
Yes.
Thank you, darling. It's exhausting too, though, isn't it? I'm so sorry, Paola, but you persevered. Well done. Okay?
Yes, every day.
Thank you. Anybody got any more questions? Good, Paola. Nothing wrong. Go.
So I don't know if you remember, I have a daughter who's been estranged for maybe 10 years.
Okay,
I had an email address. I don't know where she was, what she was
Okay, good.
doing. And I would email her.
Okay.
The response was extremely hostile.
okay, go on. So what's the question?
Well, about a month ago, she called me.
What, darling?
A month ago, she called me.
Okay, and said what?
We had a very pleasant conversation.
Good, wonderful, I'm happy.
And I'm very happy, very excited, but I'm kind of like,
What?
how did that happen?
A virtuous karmic seed arose in her mind that compelled her, due to your virtuous karma in the past, to be kind to her mum. Simple. You must have had the little karmic seed to ripen to have her be kind to you, and it must have triggered some virtue in her mind to pick up the phone and be nice to her mother. Some mutual virtuous karma. I'm very happy. Not happened since though. She didn't call again.
No, she's calling it.
Oh, well done.
No,
So
she
keep
called
it
twice this
keep it
week.
going then. So keep it
Sent an
going.
email.
Good, well done.
And
So
I
there's some virtuous, so the negative karma ran out, and now some virtuous karma has started again. This is what happens. Things change, you know, isn't it? What else, people? 302. According to that, it's 310. So your clocks aren't coordinated. Any other questions? Any other questions? Whew. Yes, Alona, talk to me. Yes. Unmute. Unmute. Unmute, Petal.
Yes, hi, Venerable Robina.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, good.
My Zoom icons change. I can't figure it out, but I figured it out. I have a question. At my work, my boss, she's in the hospital and she's had a surgery. She had a cancer. She's fighting for her life. And then we are in the clinic. We are 20 women. I got the call today from our manager, and she told me, so tomorrow I'm coming back to work. And I was wondering, Venerable, what is the best? How do we support each other? Because we all like her, and she's sick in the hospital. You know,
coming back to work.
yes, my boss at work.
The one who's in hospital.
Yes.
You said she's fighting for her life. How can she be coming back to work?
No, I'm coming. I'm going to work. I was away for a week. I'm going to work.
Who's fighting for their life?
My boss.
And where is she now?
In the hospital.
Okay, so she's fighting for her life. She's dying.
Yes. Well, yeah, most likely, yeah.
Okay, so what's the question?
It's happened suddenly.
Okay, so what's the question?
How do we support it, work each other, like in the best way?
What do you support each other? How about supporting her? She's the one who's dying.
Well, we can go.
Each other? What do you mean, Alona? Each other? Who cares about each other? That's sentimental. Be nice to each other. Meanwhile, remember death. What about helping your boss? What do you plan to do for her? That's all I care about. What do you plan to do for her?
We can't do anything yet.
You Alona plan to do for your boss, darling. What are you doing?
I do medicine prayer for her.
Good. Every day?
I just found out today, so I started today.
You didn't know she had cancer until today?
I got the call today. And
the main thing is to worry about her, not just colleagues. The main thing is to do every second, you do medicine Buddha, you do prayers for her strongly, even you can have prayers done at Kopan if you want. And secondly, not a question of helping each other. They don't need to be helped. They're not dying. But remind people, if you get back to work, you can talk about, well, this is sad. Yes, but you know, I've been thinking, you can say, oh, I've been thinking lately, you know, this could happen to me. People get cancer all the time. We could all be dying. Let's get ready and make the most of our lives. You give them a little talk about impermanence. Not like a lecture. But you just say, I've been thinking about this, make it very casual. So it's advice, kindness, not just to make them feel better for their own sake. That's just sentimental rubbish. Do you understand me?
Yes.
You understand, darling? You don't have to make like a lecture, but you can say, I've been thinking it. It's a wake-up call. We always hear about people getting cancer, but you know, it could be us one day. We have to remember that. So let's make the most of our lives. That's how you can talk. Instead of making it all sentimental, you know? Do you understand me?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Most beneficial. Meanwhile, you pray for her. For sure you do medicine Buddha. And is she conscious?
Yes, she is.
And
yes.
Are you close to this boss?
Well, yes, she was good to me.
How many years have you known her?
She haven't been my boss all these years. She's been my boss just for last year, but I knew her for 10 years.
So you don't think to visit her or send a note or something and say that you...
I asked, but she's so weak, so they don't think it's a good idea. I'm gonna find out more tomorrow because I
Does
just
she have a husband or something, or what? Or family?
she does. Yes, yes.
And maybe you can send a note to the husband or
sent-
something. Just, I've known I've known her, whatever her name is, for 10 years, and she was so kind, and I really just want to send you I'm praying for her, whether they're Christian or not, I don't care. They're not gonna know what prayers. Just say you're praying for her and you wish everyone well. You reach out in a kind way, I would suggest.
Yes.
And
Okay.
And maybe you can say, but on all your colleagues, they mightn't be religious. Maybe we can just say we can do a little practice together of sending love to her or sending something like that. You've got to get a feeling out of your own wisdom what works for the group, But make it about her, not about each other. You said help each other. No, make it about her. And remembering that could happen to them as well. Just say that you've been thinking about it, not like a lecture. You understand?
Yes, absolutely.
Casual conversation, it's very beneficial. But definitely reach out to the family of this woman. And she might love to hear that you're thinking about her. It's so important. As a group even. All of us are thinking about you and sending you much love. Something like that. You know yourself if you hear something like that. It's very moving, isn't it?
Yes.
You understand? So do what you can, okay?
Yes.
What's her
Thank you. Maria. No, Marie.
We'll finish now with Medicine Buddha from Maria. So let us meditate. We think of Medicine Buddha, same as the Buddha, but dark blue, okay? Sitting in the sky. And as we say the mantra, we imagine powerful blue light coming out to Maria, to everybody who's suffering, all the people we know, and to Maria and everybody on the planet who's suffering, sending this powerful healing light. Praying that their physical body is healed, but their mind is calmed. Ta taum bekanze maha bekanze ranza samungate svaha. Taya 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 taum bekanze maha bekanze ranza samungate svaha. So Maria is dying. If her mind is more fragile right now, I mean, she'd be susceptible to the blessings of the Buddha. The mind is more, so may she see the Medicine Buddha, may she receive the benefit of Medicine Buddha right now. And everybody we know who's dying and sick, all the suffering people in the universe, may they all benefit from the blessings. Their mind be peaceful and their body be healed. And let me finish. I think it's enough. Jangchob semchog rinpoche ma ke panam ke guchig ke panyampa me pa yang gong ne gondu pavashok. And may Lamas Rinpoche come very, very quickly back to us, please. And that's it, everybody. Done. That's enough. Thank you, people. All of you. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Alona. Thank you, Cyril. Thank you, Cyril. You think too, Medicine Buddha healing you as well, sweetheart. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Much love. See you next time. Thank you, Eileen. Bye, sweethearts.